Hello, dear story lovers. At the amount of 1,000 subscribers, I will post a huge series of special stories for you. Subscribe now. The twin suns of Nebula 9 glared down on the sprawling market, a chaotic labyrinth of clashing colors, alien smells, and the hum of countless languages. Elara wove her way through the crowd, her boots crunching against the metallic ground. She clutched a small satchel of credits close to her chest, her heart pounding with excitement and anxiety. For a girl from the backwater mining colony of Callisto Ridge, Nebula 9 was a universe unto itself, a place of endless wonder and daunting danger. Elara had no grand plans for her visit to the market. She was just another face in the sea of traders, wanderers, and thrill-seekers. But fate, or perhaps chance, had other ideas. At the center of the market stood the Grand Auction Hall, an open-air coliseum where beings from every corner of the galaxy came to trade the rare and the extraordinary. Here, items of legend were bought and sold, starship engines that could bend light, ancient artifacts from forgotten civilizations, and, most famously, living creatures bred for war, work, or companionship. Elara found herself drawn to the auction. The din of the market faded as she entered the Colosseum, the air electric with anticipation. She squeezed through the crowd, taking a seat near the back. Below, in the sunlit arena, the auctioneer, a towering, four-armed being with a voice like a foghorn, was introducing the next lot. Lot 728, the auctioneer bellowed, his words amplified by a floating translator drone. A Krylon steed, bred for combat and endurance. Once the pride of the galactic regiments, now a rare sight in these parts. A heavy gate creaked open, and the Krylon steed was led into the arena. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd. The creature was enormous, nearly twice the size of a terrestrial horse, with sleek black fur that shimmered like liquid metal. But its ribs were stark against its hide, and its head hung low, eyes dull and lifeless. Chains rattled as it was prodded forward by a handler. What a disappointment, an alien bidder near Elara scoffed. It's barely standing. It's worthless, another agreed, their many eyes blinking in unison. A relic of a bygone era. Elara's heart clenched. She didn't know much about Krylon steeds, only vague stories about their bravery in ancient wars, but seeing the creature in such a pitiful state stirred something deep within her. It wasn't just pity. It was anger. The bidding began, but it was lackluster. A few low offers were made, more as jokes than genuine interest. The auctioneer's booming voice grew impatient. Surely someone sees the potential here, he roared. This is a Krylon steed. A living war machine. Shall we let it go for scraps? The crowd chuckled, and the auctioneer sighed. Last call. 100 credits, anyone? Elara's hand shot up before she could stop herself. 100 credits, she called, her voice trembling but clear. The crowd turned to look at her, a wave of laughter sweeping through the Colosseum. A human girl, someone jeered. What does she want with a washed-up war beast? The auctioneer's eyes narrowed. 100 credits, going once. Going twice. Sold. A cheer erupted, not for Elara, but for the absurdity of the moment. Elara ignored the laughter as she hurried down to the arena, her satchel clutched tightly. The handler handed her the lead, and she stared up at the towering creature she had just bought. I don't know why I did that, she murmured to the steed. Its ears flicked, but it didn't meet her gaze. The crowd dispersed, the Colosseum emptying as the next lot was prepared. Elara led the Krylon steed out of the auction hall, her mind racing. She didn't have a plan, a place to keep it, or even the faintest idea of how to care for it. All she knew was that she couldn't leave it behind. Nova, she whispered, testing the name on her lips. The steed's ears twitched again, and for a fleeting moment, its dull eyes seemed to spark with recognition. All right, Nova, Elara said, her voice steadier now. Let's figure this out together. As they stepped into the bustling market once more, a sense of purpose settled over Elara. She had no idea what she had just gotten herself into, but for the first time in her life, she felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be. Elara's small shuttle was barely equipped to handle passengers, let alone a creature the size of Nova. The Krylon steed stood awkwardly in the cargo hold, his massive frame dwarfing the space. Elara had cleared what little she could, storage crates and mining equipment now piled into the corners, but it was obvious this arrangement was temporary. Nova shifted uncomfortably, his hooves scraping against the metal floor. "I know it's not great," Elara said, brushing a stray lock of hair from her face as she adjusted a loose strap on Nova's harness. "But it's better than the auction, right?" Nova let out a low rumble that sounded somewhere between a grunt and a sigh. Elara took that as agreement. The journey back to Callisto Ridge was uneventful, though Elara spent most of it reading everything she could find on Krylon steeds. Her old data pad yielded fragmented information, legends of their role as warriors, stories of their loyalty, and sparse mentions of their telepathic abilities. But practical knowledge, like what they ate or how to care for them, was frustratingly scarce. When they landed on the dusty mining colony, Elara led Nova out into the barren landscape. Callisto Ridge was no Nebula 9. The air was dry, and the ground was rocky, with little vegetation to be seen. A few curious miners paused their work to stare at the unusual sight: a human girl leading a massive alien steed through the settlement. "Where'd you pick that up, Elara?" a grizzled miner called, leaning against his drill. "An auction," she replied, keeping her tone light. "He's a project." The miner chuckled, shaking his head. "Good luck with that." Ignoring the stares and whispers, Elara brought Nova to her modest dwelling, a repurposed mining outpost on the edge of the settlement. The stable, once used for hauling drones, was small but sturdy. She cleaned it out as best she could, laying down makeshift bedding and a trough filled with water. "It's not a palace," she said as she stepped back to admire her work. "But it's home." Nova lowered his massive head to inspect the space. For a moment, Elara thought he might reject it outright. But then he stepped inside, settling down with a heavy thud. His metal-like coat caught the faint light, giving him an almost ethereal glow. Elara smiled, feeling a flicker of hope. The next few weeks were a test of patience and perseverance. Nova's health was precarious, and Elara struggled to find the right balance of care. She scavenged what she could from the colony, a mix of protein-rich feed and imported supplements meant for other livestock. Slowly, Nova began to fill out, his ribs becoming less prominent, his coat regaining its luster. Their bond deepened during these days. Elara would spend hours sitting in the stable, speaking to Nova as if he could understand her. Sometimes, she thought she felt a presence in her mind, a faint echo of her own thoughts. At first, she dismissed it as wishful thinking. But as time went on, the sensation grew stronger. One evening, as she brushed Nova's coat, she whispered, "Can you hear me?" To her astonishment, a voice soft and hesitant replied in her mind. "Yes." Elara froze, the brush slipping from her hand. "Was that you?" Nova's head dipped in what could only be described as a nod. "I hear you, faintly." Tears welled up in Elara's eyes, a mix of wonder and relief. "You can talk?" "Not as you do," Nova replied. "Words are difficult. But feelings, thoughts. I understand." Elara placed a hand on his neck, overwhelmed by the connection. "You're amazing, Nova." For the first time, Nova's dull eyes brightened, a spark of life returning to them. The bond between them was no longer just a hunch, it was real, tangible. And it was growing stronger. As Nova's strength returned, so too did his abilities. Elara began to notice subtle changes, the way his presence seemed to calm her, the faint hum of energy that surrounded him. One day, as she worked on repairing a broken drone outside the stable, a sudden crash drew her attention. She turned to see a heavy beam had fallen, threatening to crush a nearby supply shed. Before she could react, Nova was there. His form blurred with energy, his hooves leaving faint trails of light as he surged forward. With a powerful thrust of his head, he knocked the beam aside, saving the shed from destruction. Elara stared in awe. "Nova, how did you do that?" The steed's voice echoed in her mind, stronger now. Strength returns. More to discover. The realization hit her like a thunderbolt. Nova wasn't just recovering, he was evolving. The potential she had sensed at the auction was finally emerging, and it was far greater than she had ever imagined. That night, as the twin moons rose over Callisto Ridge, Elara sat outside the stable, gazing up at the stars. Nova stood beside her, his presence a comforting weight. "We're going to figure this out," she said, her voice steady. "Together." Together, Nova agreed, his thoughts a warm echo in her mind. As the night deepened, a sense of purpose settled over them both. Their journey was just beginning. The more time Elara spent with Nova, the more she realized how extraordinary he truly was. His telepathic communication grew clearer, his strength returned in ways that defied logic, and his ability to channel energy began to manifest in increasingly dramatic ways. But with each revelation came questions. What had happened to Nova's species? Why had a creature with such potential been reduced to a mere spectacle at an auction? Elara was determined to find answers. The Library of Forgotten Lore Callisto Ridge had few resources, but its main settlement housed a small archive and eclectic collection of books, digital records, and alien relics left behind by transient traders. Elara spent days poring over the archives, searching for anything related to the Krylon steeds. The records were fragmented and contradictory, but a pattern began to emerge. The Krylon steeds, she discovered, had once been revered as living weapons during the great interstellar wars of centuries past. Bred for combat, they were loyal, intelligent, and capable of feats that bordered on the mythical. But their role in war had come at a terrible cost. After the final battles, the galaxy's ruling factions, fearing the power of the Krylon steeds, had ordered their systematic destruction. The survivors were enslaved or abandoned, their legacy reduced to whispers and myths. Elara felt a surge of anger and sadness as she pieced together the truth. Nova's kind had been betrayed by those who had once relied on them. Their strength had been exploited, their intelligence ignored, and their value diminished. As she sifted through the data, she stumbled upon a particularly intriguing record, a mention of the core bond, a phenomenon that occurred between a Krylon steed and a trusted partner. The bond was said to unlock the steed's full potential, allowing it to channel immense energy, communicate seamlessly, and even transcend its physical limitations. Elara's thoughts raced. Was this what was happening between her and Nova? Had their connection awakened something deep within him? Testing the limits determined to understand Nova's abilities, Elara began training with him. In the desolate canyons outside Callisto Ridge, they pushed each other to the brink. Elara set up rudimentary obstacles, using scraps from the mining colony to test Nova's agility and strength. At first, the tasks were simple, leaping over barriers, carrying heavy loads, but as Nova grew stronger, the challenges escalated. One afternoon, Elara devised a particularly ambitious test, a series of targets set at varying distances, each rigged with sensors to detect impact. She encouraged Nova to focus on the targets, drawing on the faint hum of energy she had come to associate with his powers. "Focus, Nova," she thought, projecting her intention. "You can do this." Nova pawed the ground, his coat shimmering with an otherworldly light. With a deep, resonant cry, he released a surge of energy. A beam of light shot from his body, striking the first target with pinpoint accuracy. The energy ricocheted, hitting the second and third targets in quick succession. Elara gasped, her heart pounding. "Nova, that was incredible." Nova turned to her, his thoughts filled with pride. "More is possible." Bond grows stronger. The realization filled Elara with both excitement and unease. Nova's power was awe-inspiring, but it was also dangerous. If word of his abilities spread, there was no telling what might happen. She couldn't shake the memory of the auction, the callous laughter of the crowd, and the greed in the eyes of the bidders. Nova's kind had been exploited once before, and she wouldn't let it happen again. The visitor. Elara's resolve was put to the test sooner than she expected. One evening, as she and Nova rested by the stable, a sleek starship descended over the colony. The vessel bore the insignia of the Galactic Restoration Corps, a group known for recovering and preserving endangered species but also for their bureaucratic approach to handling rare creatures. A tall, imposing figure emerged from the ship, flanked by armed guards. The leader, an alien with skin like polished obsidian and eyes that gleamed like molten gold, introduced themselves as Commander Varric. "We've received reports of a Krylon steed in this settlement," Varric said, their voice smooth but commanding. "A creature of such rarity and historical significance must be protected and studied. We're here to take it into our custody." Elara's blood ran cold. "Nova isn't some artifact for you to study," she said, stepping in front of the steed. "He's free, and he stays with me." Varric's gaze flicked to Nova, who stood tall and unyielding behind Elara. "A human girl bonded to a Krylon steed," Varric mused. "Unusual. But the steed's importance transcends personal attachment. Surely you understand." "I understand that you don't care about him," Elara shot back. "You just want what he can do." Nova's thoughts echoed in her mind, filled with both determination and defiance. "I stand with you." Before Varric could respond, Nova's body began to glow, his energy pulsing in waves that made the ground tremble. The guards raised their weapons, but Varric held up a hand, their expression shifting from arrogance to something resembling fear. "It seems this steed has chosen," Varric said, their tone softer now. "But know this, others will come. Not all will ask permission." With that, Varric and their team retreated, their ship disappearing into the night sky. Elara let out a shaky breath, her hand resting on Nova's flank. "We have to be careful," she said. "They're not going to stop." Nova's voice resonated in her mind, steady and reassuring. "We are stronger together. Let them come." As the twin moons cast their silver light over Callisto Ridge, Elara and Nova stood side by side, their bond unbreakable. The revelation of Nova's past had deepened their connection, and they both knew the road ahead would be fraught with challenges. But they also knew they had each other, and that was enough. Their journey wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about justice, redemption, and proving to the galaxy that even the forgotten and forsaken could rise again. The Galactic Challenge was more than a competition. It was a spectacle that united beings from every corner of the known universe. Held once every 3 years on the crystalline world of Veltraxis Prime, the event tested the physical, mental, and strategic prowess of competitors in grueling trials. Warriors, beasts, and their handlers competed for glory, prestige, and, for many, survival. For Elara and Nova, it was a chance to prove their worth and to challenge the galaxy's perception of the Krylon steeds. Arrival on Veltraxis Prime. When Elara and Nova arrived on Veltraxis Prime, they were greeted by a dazzling landscape of towering crystalline spires and vibrant alien flora. The challenge grounds stretched for miles, a blend of natural terrain and engineered obstacles designed to push competitors to their limits. The participants were as varied as the galaxy itself. A 6-limbed reptilian creature glistened with bioluminescent scales. A sleek robotic entity hovered silently, its handlers murmuring instructions. And then there was Nova, towering above them all, his coat shimmering like starlight. The crowd's reaction was mixed. Some whispered in awe, while others snickered at the sight of a Krylon steed led by a human girl. Elara ignored the murmurs, her focus on the task ahead. "They'll see," she said softly to Nova. "We're here to show them what you're capable of." Nova's voice echoed in her mind, steady and resolute. "We will show them together." The trials began. The Galactic Challenge consisted of 3 primary trials: the Gauntlet, a test of agility and endurance; the Labyrinth, a puzzle-laden maze requiring strategy and intelligence; and the Arena, a final combat trial against other competitors. The gauntlet, the first trial, was a chaotic obstacle course filled with pitfalls, energy barriers, and mechanical traps. Elara watched from the sidelines as Nova faced the course, his movements fluid and precise. Where other competitors stumbled, Nova leapt with ease, his powerful limbs propelling him over towering walls and across gaping chasms. But it wasn't just his physical prowess that set him apart. When an energy barrier shifted unpredictably, Nova paused, sensing its rhythm. Elara felt his thoughts reaching out to hers. Left, then jump. She relayed the strategy to the handlers nearby, and Nova executed it perfectly, earning gasps from the crowd. By the end of the gauntlet, Nova had not only completed the course but set a new record. The murmurs in the crowd grew louder, shifting from doubt to curiosity. The Labyrinth, the second trial, was a sprawling maze filled with puzzles that required both intelligence and teamwork. Elara was allowed to accompany Nova, guiding him through the maze as they faced riddles, energy locks, and shifting walls. One particularly challenging puzzle required competitors to align floating orbs using telekinetic energy. While others struggled, Nova stepped forward, his body glowing faintly. Elara felt the connection between them deepen as she focused her thoughts on the pattern. Together, they guided the orbs into place, the maze shifting open to reveal the next path. As they emerged from the maze, Elara noticed a shift in the crowd's energy. There were no more jeers or whispers of derision, only applause. The arena. The final trial was the most dangerous. Competitors and their handlers faced off in a massive arena, battling for dominance in a simulated combat scenario. Nova stood at the center of the arena, his coat shimmering with an intensity that reflected his readiness. Their opponents included a towering mech piloted by an insectoid duo and a ferocious winged predator that screeched as it dove toward Nova. The crowd roared as the battle began. Nova moved with precision, his energy crackling in the air. When the winged predator attacked, he sidestepped effortlessly, releasing a burst of energy that disoriented it mid-flight. The mech charged next, its massive fists pounding the ground, but Nova leapt over it with grace, delivering a shockwave that forced it to its knees. Elara's voice rang out, clear and confident. "Now, Nova! Finish it!" With a powerful cry, Nova unleashed a beam of energy that illuminated the arena, disabling the mech and scattering the remaining opponents. The arena fell silent, the crowd stunned by the display of power and precision. Then, as the realization set in, a deafening cheer erupted. A legacy restored. When the dust settled, Elara and Nova stood victorious. The announcer declared them the winners of the Galactic Challenge, their names echoing across the arena. But the victory was more than just a trophy, it was a statement. The Krylon steeds were no longer relics of a forgotten past. They were beings of strength, intelligence, and honor. After the event, Elara was approached by reporters, scholars, and even representatives of galactic factions. She spoke passionately about Nova's journey, the history of his kind, and the need for their rehabilitation. Her words sparked a movement, drawing attention to the plight of other Krylon steeds scattered across the galaxy. Nova, for his part, became a symbol of resilience and hope. The bond between him and Elara was studied, celebrated, and emulated by others seeking to connect with their own companions. A new journey. As they left Viltraxis Prime, Elara looked out at the stars, her hand resting on Nova's flank. "We did it," she said, her voice filled with pride and wonder. But this is just the beginning. Nova's thoughts resonated in her mind, warm and steady. Together, there is no end. The galaxy had seen what they could accomplish, and now, the future stretched out before them, a future filled with possibility, purpose, and the unbreakable bond of a girl and her steed.